I was interviewing a couple of men when the missiles first started to be thrown. I was in direct line of sight. We all ran for cover. I went to get my hard hat and the other safety equipment that we would wear in that kind of situation.
They're coming out, not controlling them, not making them go straight to the fucking pen, moving straight towards us, pushing us back. Then they grabbed us down here and all of a sudden all we see is stones flying away.
So they don't ask us to move, they were fucking pushing us.
Coppers are pushing us back. Why are they stopping them throwing stones rather than pushing us back?
One actually hit me on the arm as well.
That. And then they ask us why we're upset and why we don't fucking cooperate.
So now we're going to get arrested, but they're not getting arrested.
My criticism is that if EDL supporters had flares and other kinds of weapons, why didn't the police find them before they actually went into the enclosure?
The situation was they were searched on the buses, so there were dry trains and dry buses, so alcohol was completely out of it, so that's the first thing. They had to walk through a knife arch. That knife arch is a metal detector, so it detected a number of weapons. The Memorandum of Understanding made it clear no weapons, yet one of them at least got through with a smoke bomb. We were under pressure at one point. It's a well-known tactic that the EDL will push against the police lines, and that's why those officers were specially trained officers. You can have the best trained police officers, but if you've got violent individuals who are, let's say, from a football hooligan background, you know, they will try their best. The personal bravery of those local councillors and community interveners, local men from Bradford, at the bottom of the Midland Hotel there was absolutely outstanding. We have that on evidence gathering footage.
We saw the escalation of the EDL violence. They showed themselves to be exactly what we claim they are, which is vicious and racist and violent and nasty. And that behaviour escalated over several hours.
There was probably a group of about 100 in the end that broke through missiles, got through around the police cordon, or would appear to have got around the police cordon.
I was stood on the roof watching it unfold. The wall that separated the Bradford Urban Garden to the building site had been reinforced with concrete. There was a massive drop at the other side that nobody in their right minds would have gone over there, but they did. Then they picked bricks up and they threw stones at their own people. And in fact, some of the EDL were taken to the hospital and given medical treatment, and they actually started fighting each other. And what you didn't see is that there was an outer cordon of resources that were there ready and able, but we deploy resources in waves. And you put your forward resources, then you get your second resources to kit up, and that was what was going on.
The police were brilliant that day. They managed the whole event peacefully. Without their thorough planning and sound preparation and the use of resources, we might not have managed the event successfully.
And the young men, the Muslim men, were absolutely fantastic, I think. And the fact, the way they responded and how they didn't take the bait, despite being in close proximity to the chants and what was going on.
This is an opportunity to build the confidence of Bradford and its people by booking the people the way they had booked young people of Bradford in the past, in 2001.
Well, there is a senior investigating officer, a detective superintendent, dedicated to the post-investigation of the 28th of August. He has a full team with him, and they have just finished thousands of hours of video footage, going through them to identify those people who committed offences in this city. They will be brought to justice, there's no doubt about it.
People will get arrested and they will get sentenced. One of the issues though in English law is if you declare something to be a riot, which they did, then the sentences are automatically longer. This wasn't a riot in those terms because the police contained it. But I think we will need to manage the expectations once people are charged, or what level of sentences people can expect.
This was a group of predominantly ex-football thugs who were coming to Bradford to stir up racial hatred, and to actually think that that is legal in this day and age is quite ridiculous. There's a very thin line between freedom of speech and inciting racial hatred.
The 11,000 people signed the petition weren't signing the petition to say, ban that march for God's sake, but, oh, you can have a little bit of a riot in town instead. They were saying they don't want the EDL in their town. I think the Race Relations Amendment Act could have been used more fully and more appropriately. We should have been allowed to ban them coming. It should have been a arrestable offence if they had turned up here.
We need to have a sensible conversation in this country, not to stop freedom of speech, but actually when the way in which that freedom of speech is proposed to be exercised leads to huge costs, then those protesting need to bear that cost.
The cost of the policing operation from the English Defence League is probably somewhere between about £500,000 and £1 million. Yes, it's out of the public purse, and no, I'm not happy about paying for it, and it has to come from core budget, so therefore something else suffers. The Home Secretary has written to the Chief Constable saying she would like to work with him on reviewing the legislation. We need some sort of distinction between something that is about positive change and the EDL, because right now if Bradford Women for Peace said, right, I want to peacefully protest in Bradford Urban Gardens, they would have the same status as the English Defence League. Now, that can't be right.
I thought Hope Not Hate did a tremendous job in getting the petition, which led to some degree to the ban. I thought we did the media very well. I thought we engaged the Telegraph and Argus early enough to have an influence over the events which led to the Home Secretary banning the march.
West Yorkshire Police Headquarters had confidence in the local police commanders here, and so it was very much a locally led situation, which I think was hugely important, particularly in terms of community engagement.
For the first time, I think young people felt as though they were being heard by those within the mosque context. The imams were talking to them and with them rather than at them.
We have vibrant faith communities. Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, Christians, Jews. They have always come to our rescue. They have always come to our help and support. And this time it was no different. It's that trust, that confidence and level of communication that has enabled us and empowered us.
The police and council picked certain people to work with and didn't pick the people who would directly work within communities. If the community were involved, we wouldn't have had 3 or 4 events happening on that same day. It would have been, there could have been one big community event that happened.
The council was a bit slow to start the ball rolling. For example, how to manage the young people, what we're going to do on the day, what kind of events should we plan on the day so that we can engage the community, engage the young people.
There was a contradictory message going on. On the one hand, you've got people saying we're telling everybody to stay away from the city, but then you're also saying all the shops will be open. Yeah, and everybody's saying it's business as usual, but business as usual when everybody's got to leave the town.
The communication overall was very good, but it could have been better, and we could have been communicating with local activists more effectively, more quickly.
There were lots of individuals from the community who had an influential role, who were playing a mediatory role. That role should have been kind of formally recognised much earlier on. That should have been part of the core strategy in terms of the management of the events on that day.
Getting people to watch football matches and to go on climbing expeditions and people who were vulnerable, was quite right. But I think there's also depoliticisation of young people, which is, I think, a bit of a problem. Politicising young people is really important, because if you don't, then the opposite of that is they don't just hide away, they actually end up resenting their local authorities, they end up maybe even in the hands of radicalisation.
The West Yorkshire Police, Bradford Council and other agencies has a real responsibility in enabling and empowering those communities to be able to resist EDL. The only way they will give up, for them to feel that Bradford communities are empowered, are enabled, and together to say, we do not want you in our city.
Right from the beginning, I think there needs to be a civic network, leadership that would actually straight away start the planning. And that's really essential.
This is your top priority for a period of time up until the dispute. I think you've got to plan to have overwhelming resources on the day so that you can manage anything that comes and any number that come.
And if you can create that feeling, that sense of togetherness, and instill it with confidence that the major agencies do know what they're doing, then I think you can build that resilience. And I think we proved that that was the case.
Don't put all the energies into banning a march. Remember that people have the right to a static assembly. Engage positively with the press from the outset, and genuinely have the best interests of the city at heart. This isn't a time for personal agendas and personal pride and organisational issues. This is about what's best for the city.
The message I think that came out was that the people of Bradford had succeeded in turning their backs on the EDL and the politics of the EDL. And I think Bradford can be rightly proud of itself.
On that day, on the 28th of August, it was one of my proudest days actually as a Bradfordian, because I saw members of all communities coming together to say, no, we will not let a group of right-wing fascists interfere with our community's future.
It's actually influenced the national agenda around the policing of protests. And so Bradford is known for a lot of positive things now.
I do think it was a win-lose situation, and I think we won and they lost. And the green ribbon was almost a symbol of that, really.
And they have written a very inspiring chapter in the history of Bradford, that we are capable of managing events like that.
For all the faults and the small problems and the issues, Bradford came out a stronger city, a brighter city, and more hopeful about the future than any other time I can remember in 21 years being here.